All right, after that riveting session that just concluded, the next conversation is essentially at the very heart of what's arguably the most consequential bilateral partnership in the Indo-Pacific today, that is India and Japan. We've seen decades of Japanese capital build some of India's most visible infrastructure, the Delhi Metro, the Mumbai-Ahmedabad bullet train corridor, industrial corridors that are reshaping our manufacturing map. But this relationship is now evolving beyond concrete and steel into semiconductors, critical minerals, AI, supply chain security. So the question for this panel is fairly simple and straightforward. What does the next chapter of India-Japan economic cooperation really look like? And can it move at the speed at which, well, geopolitics of today actually demands? There's a terrific panel here to unpack a lot of it. We have Mr. Sato, Ambassador Sanjay Kumar Verma, we have Mr. Ravi Kapoor, Ashok Chandok, and Dr. Vikas Kumar as well. We'll try and cover as much ground as we can. In fact, Mr. Sato, let me start with you there, which is that JICA has quietly been behind some of India's most transformative set of infrastructure, whether you talk about metros, whether you talk about bullet trains, whether you talk about industrial corridors. What has been the investment philosophy? Has it changed? Has it evolved in terms of the shifting realities and priorities that exist right now?
Hi, thank you very much. My name is Miyusuke Sato from the JICA India office, senior representative. Pretty much honored to be here.
So you'll have to keep the mic a little closer to you.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. Well, firstly, let me a little bit introduce about the JICA. JICA is a kind of Japanese governmental agency with a centralized responsibility for ODA implementation. And for India, JICA is the largest provider of international cooperation. For Japan as well, India is the largest recipient of its international cooperation. We have been working in India over 68 years and they invest already for more than INR 4.6 trillion. And then we are running a 120 project right now. And a big example for here is Delhi Metro, I think. Yes, we have been working together more than a decade. And Delhi Metro network is already becoming one of the top 10 cities in the world. So, and then JICA is further continuing to expand such, important infrastructure network. But on top of that, the question is, what is the next phase? So the discussion point may come to the quality side of it. So take, for example, when it comes to the metro, the usability or the maximization of the economic value of such infrastructure. Maybe interpret it into the word like, last mile connectivity or the transit-oriented development type of thing. It's a kind of, not only a public investment, but also into a private investment mobilization will be the key element for the JICA's future investment. Let me stop here.
I'm going to come to that private investment bit in just a second because that essentially is a very key aspect of the puzzle. But we're speaking on a day when there is a lot of strategic layers to this conversation as well. And Ambassador Verma, let me bring you in on just that, which is when you zoom out, look at the strategic picture, how does this really kind of, this economic cooperation reinforce the broader Indo-Pacific vision that both India and Japan are now committed to, bolstering it, and really likely to be the key vision that both countries take this forward?
So first of all, if we look at the bilateral relationship between India and Japan, the first thing which comes to our mind is that it has started from dependence, which was ODA to India, to interdependence, which was explained in the first session as well, to now strategic convergence. And that strategic convergence is not only bilateral, it extends to the region as well, free, open, and inclusive Indo-Pacific. So what is it that we are trying to do there? There are three essential pillars which one has to look at. And the first one is to build resilience. This resilience includes supply chain. The second one is enhance economic security. Supply chain resilience is just one component of economic security. There is connectivity, there are mobility, trade development, investment development. And third one is structured, trusted connectivity. So if we look at these three, then FOIIP has its place in the strategic conversation. The two countries are also trying to take on board other countries in the region so that more stakeholders would automatically ensure better economic security, better regional stability, and better regional security.
Those are broad areas where there is expected to be greater convergence. But in terms of ODA, it's important to just put out some numbers because that really tells the context in which we are talking. This is the development partnership from Japan, and the assistance that has come in is something that started from about 1950s, end of 1950s. It's been roughly about $58 to $60 billion so far, really backing some of the big infra projects so far. When you talk about marquee projects like the bullet train project, and we'll come to the delays that it has seen and how that sort of impacts. But those are some of the numbers, even as many are asking, could this have been more? Could this have been higher? And could that have multiple layers to this as well? Mr. Kapoor, let me then ask you about the Act East experience. You know, the entire policy with regards to engaging with ASEAN essentially is through the prism of the Northeast region. That's a very critical aspect of becoming India's gateway to the ASEAN region. How crucial has Japanese infra funding been in terms of actually converting this entire region into a vibrant industrial transit hub?
The whole concept of Act East policy and connectivity to the ASEAN region hinges on actual physical connectivity with ASEAN. You know, we have a mental frame of Act East about engaging the partners in Southeast Asia, but the critical part here is the infrastructure which actually connects Northeast with Southeast Asia. There are actually land connectivities with this region. Now, this is crying for investment. You know, and it used to be one of the major hubs. In fact, if you see the World War II was fought on the roads which led from this region to Northeast. And this infrastructure, if it is put on good track, can actually integrate the Northeast with Southeast Asia and ASEAN. And Japan can play a very critical. We had a very good study done by one of the agencies, Asian Development Bank, on how physical connectivity with Southeast Asia, with Northeast, can radically change the economic scenario of the region. Having said that, in terms of investments in infrastructure, there is a huge amount of investment happening, not Japanese at the moment, but semiconductors coming in a big way in Assam. We have a huge human resource which is available in Northeast, which is ready. And by the way, if you look at, I think there are now some exchanges, now some MOUs, where a lot of Mode 4, that's the movement of human people, is moving into this region, Japan especially. There are nursing staff coming from Manipur and Northeast, which are being trained in language skills. They look alike, they are very comfortable, you know, you have the same Mongoloid features, and if you have the skills and the language, you can actually integrate physically this whole region with Japan and Southeast Asia. So, there is a special, I think there is one special engagement with Northeast for Japan.
Yes,
I think
there is one, yes.
So that needs to be really activated. And if you actually look, you know, it's very funny.
But isn't it already activated? Isn't that already happening at multiple layers?
It is happening, we just need to speed it up. For example, coming from Guwahati to Delhi is about 1,500 kilometers. If you go 1,500 kilometers on the east, you can cover 7 countries. You know, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Myanmar, you know, just about 1,600 kilometers you can go up to Singapore. And Japan is not very far. But it's all about, so can we have investments in the airports, which have come up now, but now start looking towards Southeast Asia, have flights from here and movement of people. It will encourage trade, it will encourage businesses, and Northeast, as you know, as I think Minister was rightly pointing out, one place which will lead the growth of India in the next 50 years, 40 years, is going to be Northeast.
I'm going to come to the semiconductor bit in just a second, but I want to bring you in on just this part about the Northeast as an area, as a region where investments have come, but many are saying a lot more can be done. And then we, of course, open this up with the semiconductor aspect. Yeah.
Right. Thank you very much. So when it comes to JICA's investment in Northeast Asia, the cumulative support to Northeast Northeast India totals approximately 28,000 crore already, contributing to the improved connectivity, healthcare, and forestry, and helping bridge development gaps in the rest of the India. And as pointed out, connectivity is a matter for here. But when it comes to the next phase, so kind of how we can create the opportunities on top of that connected region is our, point of view. So what industry comes in, for example, semiconductor in Assam is a quite big, opportunities to come. So how we can support for the private investment to come in that area. So that's our phase at this moment.
Mr. Chandok, let's now talk about the semiconductor part of it. It's now as much an issue and area with regard to national security as it is with regard to economic concerns and economic realities. What real opportunities exist for India and Japan when it comes to the semiconductor space? And they already are exploring that, building on that. Your thoughts on that first.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. And just one line, I represent India Electronic Semiconductor Association, which is about 400-member body in the country, plus SEMI, which is the Global Industry Association, 3,800 companies in 20 countries for India operations. Now, semiconductor word is not just a buzzword like Bollywood or Hollywood, because it was referred 12,000 times in the media last year, by the way. But it has become a foundation of economic competitiveness, our digital sovereignty, AI, and other stuff. And we already see that into every sector of life, be it telecom, the healthcare, the equipment, the automotive, the personal gadgets, laptops, smartphones, etc., everything. And India has embarked on this journey recently, particularly from the manufacturing point of view. India has been pretty strong in the design elements for almost few decades, and more than 20% of the design pool worldwide is Indian pool of engineers. Honorable Union Minister just mentioned it about half an hour ago. But the manufacturing is where the journey has to begin. I want to highlight one point which many people tell me, that Japan is losing out on semiconductors, and which is not correct. It is wrong statement. Yes, what has happened is Japan used to be at one point of time, let's say about 80s or 90s, 40 to 50% of the global semiconductor chip production, manufacturing. Over the period of time, some other countries like Korea, Taiwan, US, they have taken a lead on manufacturing, but there is something which Japan retained, and that's really the proud thing for Japan actually, plus also quite interesting for us as we partner with Japan, which is called all this overall supply chain, upscale supply chain of semiconductor manufacturing, that includes the equipments, the chemicals, the gases, the photoresist, and so many things. These words are a bit technical jargon, but overall, it controls 45% of the chip industry.
So what about India? Japan controls 45%, but what about India?
I'm coming. And this is where the India-Japan partnership plays an important role. India has this industry which is quite thriving, but not to the semiconductor grade. We all know that India has got gases, we know we have materials, we have chemicals, we have critical minerals, but they are not purified. And this is where the joint partnership can work out between India and Japan actually to take it forward.
So 20% of designing has been done in India is now a fact that everybody acknowledges. We have probably the best designers in the world, but it's essentially been an assembly line story as far as semiconductors is concerned. You talk about R&D, you talk about manufacturing, that's where the gaps continue to exist. How will this partnership with a country that owns 45% of the semicon supply chain help India, let's say 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the line when it comes to semiconductors?
So it's progressing well. I'll give you a couple of examples. We do this events called Semicon India event. This is jointly done along with the Ministry of Electronics and IT. And December we were at Japan actually for Semicon Japan. The India event comes in September 17, 18, 19. 150 companies were showing interest actually to come to India either directly or with partnership or with the technology transfers. Last year, during the event of March which we had in Ahmedabad, 50 Japanese companies delegation came and they toured India actually. So what we see right now is, on the supply chain side, some companies have already set up their operations. For example, Horiba, Fujifilm and others, many companies are coming in. So the supply chain is going to get more strengthened and a lot of manufacturing is going to happen in the country. Plus, the India's pool of the design strength, Japanese companies and Indian companies are trying to work together towards the innovation piece.
Okay.
That means take it forward beyond what is required today towards what is required in 5 years from now.
Okay. Let's now talk about what has been one of the big success stories as far as the Japanese investment is concerned, and that's the DMRC. DMRC is a shining example of what Japanese infrastructure in core multimodal transport networks can do and has done. First of all, Dr. Kumar, I want to bring you in on the vantage point with which you sit when it comes to DMRC, the role that Japanese technology has played in terms of really allowing India to tap into mass transport networks like probably we did not have. DMRC is in a case study of its own. A, how has the transformation been? And then we talk about what could be the next layer for Japanese technology, for DMRC, for multimodal transport networks.
Good morning to all of you. First of all, I'd like to mention that DMRC is a shining example of Indo-Japanese collaboration, how such a mammoth project could be done timely and in a brownfield area. So that is, and I would say that Japanese, in fact, assistance does not come only in terms of financial, but it is more so in terms of building, like project management, like having best practices, bringing about institutional building. In fact, many of the construction practices in India got improved because of Japanese intervention through Delhi Metro. So this is what, and definitely, as we speak, 29 years back, the association started when the first agreement was signed with Japanese for the JICA assistance. And now, today we are almost operating 416 kilometers of network in NCR region. Yeah. And the passenger journeys is to the tune of 6.5 million a day. So, this shows the confidence, the reliability, the safety, and the quality of transport or transit being provided to the public. And the full credit goes to the Japanese team and the DMRC team for this. Now coming to next, I would say, where next? Like this has paved the way for urban mobility in India. People used to think that this is a dream. It has come true with the, in fact, coming up of DMRC. And this now needs to be extended to Tier 1 and Tier 2 cities also in the next phase, for which DMRC is already taking a lead role. Further, there is a lot of technologies and a lot of components in rolling stock, signaling, power systems, where DMRC is dependent on Japanese companies. And here, of late, it has been seen that because of, although demand is there in India, a lot of car manufacturers have come in India. Car manufacturers, I mean to say the coaches of metros. But still, the Japanese OEMs did not get orders. The reason being that the cost of manufacturing in Japan is quite high. And also, of course, the turmoil in the world.
Mr. Seto is taking notes on just that part that you just mentioned, that how is it that it's not adding up, and I'm going to get him to respond to just that.
So yes. It is an opportune time to collaborate with India's scale and India's skill and Japanese technology so that they can diversify and have manufacturing hubs in India also, which will cater for not only India, but I would say to the Southeast Asia, African countries also. And already DMRC's model, this can then be replicated to each and every country, and it would be a win-win situation for India as well as
That's a very good recommendation and really a roadmap as to how Japan can build on its presence. Having local manufacturing could actually ensure that some of those cost pressures could be addressed, speedy execution could happen, and then scale it up to also be export units. But I want you to respond to some of those aspects that he mentioned, that Dr. Kumar mentioned.
I would still have certain more issues. I'll just bring forth.
Oh, okay, yes.
See, just an example, if you see, Japanese companies of Mitsubishi, Hitachi and Nippon, they are associated with us. And I would tell you that along with Nippon, we have commissioned an unmanned train operation. In fact, earlier, last 20 years, this prowess was there with Europeans only. But DMRC and Nippon together have done this, and I can proudly say it is working better than the European counterpart.
Okay.
It is working better than the European counterpart. So this is one thing which the collaboration has done. I would say they also were in fact innovating, and we also had come up with our experience, and jointly they have made a product which is very useful for the metros.
So these are live examples of actual experiences about how Japanese collaboration, investment, technology has been game-changing. Dr. Kumar, let's get in a response from him, and then I'll come back to you. I know you want to have more examples there, but let him respond. Yeah. Mr. Seto, you want to bring in your experience and your thoughts onto some of what Dr. Kumar just said?
I'm totally agree with what Dr. Kumar said. We are on the same page, and we are still collaborating to further expand the networks in the limit flow. And then on top of it, the kind of fruits gained from that long-standing relationship. The direction might be we are getting into the new markets in the South, global South. That's one potential direction, and a kind of cost effectiveness in the Indian market and a kind of technologies of Japan is such complementary relationship may make sense to further pursue and then to expand to the another market outside of India. So.
I guess the real test would also be that over a period of time, how much of investments from Japan move away from where they have been so far, which is your rail corridors, freight corridors, and towards semiconductors, towards supply chain linkages and AI, some of the other aspects. I think over a period of time, that data will really demonstrate which way is this relationship then developing into. Ambassador Verma, let me then ask you about the fact that, one talks about trusted partners, one talks about friendshoring, but you have increasingly seen that there are fragmentation with regard to supply chains, and that actually is having an impact in terms of how countries are now negotiating with each other. Whether you take India, you take Japan, they are now operating in an extremely fragmented supply chain network globally. Is this a perfect time for them to then collaborate even more, make the supply chains even more robust?
See, whenever traditionally we talked about the investment and the economic collaboration, we talked about products. Today we should talk about ecosystems. So as long as we are able to collaborate in the ecosystems, we are looking at strategic trust and a strategic collaboration. And through the ecosystem, we can then leverage the products which are required to be developed through them. Earlier, the trust was never in the boardroom to take an investment decision. But today, if you take any investment decision in any country due to the disruptions in the supply chain that we have seen, most of the boardrooms do talk about trust, and it is taken as one of the factors of production today. And therefore, trusted partnership becomes that much more important. If I break down the trust factor itself, then it's not one single aspect. It is, again, an ecosystem of various trusts. So how do we look at the trust in the manufacturing capacity? So if you look at India and Japan, in India, there is manufacturing capacity where the ecosystem trust could be developed, created, and leveraged further. But there could be trusted technology. Now, this is becoming one of the most important aspects in any boardroom today, that the technology is there, but can we trust that technology? So India and Japan together have these technology ecosystems which could be trusted. So that is the second component of trusted partnership which you just mentioned. The third one is trusted logistics and connectivity. In the pandemic period, we saw how disruptions in the logistics and connectivity impacted the entire world. And therefore, this has become another major conversation in the boardrooms where the decisions are taken. Another concept which I want to bring in today is the trusted capital. Is the capital trusted? Capital can come today, it can vanish tomorrow. But can we trust that capital to remain here for long term? Can we trust that capital to create something which is important for strategic considerations for the both countries?
And I think that's where the Japanese investments are really distinguished from some of the others, isn't it?
They are patient investments. So as long as you have patient investments, things would move forward. When you have investments which come today and overnight they vanish, there the trust is not there. And finally, after serving in Japan, what I've seen is that the boardrooms are increasingly talking about trusted governance. So the governance should be able to be predictable. Governance should be able to give a roadmap for the future, which does not roll back its own policies. And that is what would create a trusted partnership if one follows these 5 pillars of trust. Finally, I would say that whenever we talk of individual projects or individual products, gone are the days of talking in those terminologies. Today, we should only talk about the trusted ecosystem. If the ecosystem is there, products will develop by themselves. So for an example, if we look at mobility, if the mobility is language plus a skill set plus culture plus connectivity, then if we look at the entire thing is the ecosystem. But if we only look at the language, yes, it's a product.
Yeah.
So therefore, the ecosystem is extremely important, and more we should start talking about the ecosystem rather than the products in the trusted partnership.
Okay. When you talk about ecosystem, let's get into the nuts and bolts of investments when they come in, the regulatory landscape, the execution bottlenecks, the project delays that really do change the entire, project report, so to say. Take the bullet train example. I mean, it's run into massive delays. It's been now 6 years is the kind of delay that is now being talked about. 2023 is becoming 2029. That, I want to bring you in on that along with the larger aspect about Northeast, because it's a similar story in terms of some of those bottlenecks. How can they be overcome to ensure that some of these investments that are coming in, projects are executed on time? Because that's the best confidence that you can give to prospective investments and prospective investors. Mr. Kapoor.
See, the environment of execution and the capacity of execution, the story in the country is similar. Northeast may be little lesser than that, but in the last maybe 15 years or so, 20 years or so, there has been a tremendous improvement in the absorption capacity and execution capacities of the northeastern states. And this reflects in the fact that Tata can commit 25,000 crores to a project. Maybe 25 years back, even an investment of 10 crores. I mean, I've been in the industries department for a very long time in the state. Getting a 200 crore or 500 crore investment was a challenge, because people looked at that, whether we'll be able to survive here, whether we can execute the project here. But I think the last 15, 20 years, this whole competitiveness between the states to attract talent, attract investment has really spurned the states. With the result that at the highest levels in the state, they are emulating the national model, which is the Pragati, which is the Prime Minister chairs on all major projects in the country, and he chairs it once in 3 months, so that all bottlenecks are removed. Likewise, the state government, the chief ministers now have started reviewing the major projects on their personal dashboards, which has led to a huge improvement in terms of execution of the projects. The regulatory framework, yes, there are problems, but I think with the kind of mutual trust between India and Japan and our relationship, I mean, as part of my commerce brief, we were there when I was looking after the ASEAN region as Joint Secretary Commerce. There are issues, but once the trust develops, the regulatory mechanisms gradually melt down. We will stick to our regulatory mechanism, they stick to their, but I think a common platform is then found that how do we facilitate this? Okay. So that I think again is a very big improvement subsequent to good relationships. As we evolve good relationships, the trust develops, gradually the regulatory frameworks are,
good relations is the premise on which the investments start, but it's the execution of it is what decides how smoothly it goes on. That's the whole point. That's what I'm saying.
I would like to add, I think what Dr. Kumar just mentioned, I think one area where we must emulate the Japanese is the discipline and the training and the capacity building. We must, I think this is something as a national project, we must emulate their discipline and capacity building. How DMRC works is basically the training. It's the mindset which has been changed. The trains can run on time and it can run flawlessly. I think that is something where project execution, not just in Northeast, I think in the entire country, I think we must emulate and we should learn from the Japanese experience.
Dr. Kumar, you want to finish that point and then we get in Mr. Chandok, yeah.
No, I already told that we have learned a lot from Japanese, and of course what he says, the philosophy of Kaizen, that is continuous improvement, and our philosophy of yoga, that is excellence in action, that combines totally in DMRC to bring out a very different work culture.
Okay. Let's now talk about the semiconductor bit. You say that it's not a buzzword. It's spoken 12,000 times last year. I think that's the one buzzword that we are hearing with regard to semiconductors. And the difference this time around is that there is actual work on ground. There is a clear intent and a desire to be a chip major 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the line, be a part of that supply chain. Mr. Chandok, where do you see those investments from Japanese investors coming in right now? Which layer of the supply chain from the semiconductor bit do you see maximum Japanese investments and interest likely to come about?
Yeah. So today, India, Japan are working towards building what I call chip currency of trust. So because that chip is a topic actually. Now, within the semiconductor industries itself, the journey has, I would say, just began. And there are opportunities, those are being profiled and being pursued at multiple levels. Japan has a very good memory manufacturing technology for decades. And memory is a big shortage and big issue today. You know that the laptops and smartphone prices are going up because the memory prices have gone up 4 times. So that's one sector, which is the manufacturing of the fabs for semiconductors. Then advanced packaging, again Japan has got some strength. And in the supply chain topics particularly, the photoresist materials, the chemicals, some of the equipments, these are the areas where we see Japanese companies are showing interest to collaborate, partner, work together with Indian counterparts. And my view is we should not look at this as only the economic investment. This is beyond that actually. Because what India and Japan are working right now together, and it's a government-to-government dialogue, as well as there is an industry-to-industry dialogue and cooperation and on-ground activity, is to really build this grid of multitude of activities which is going to shape up the future. Okay. Now, if we look at it in terms of the investments topics, people keep asking me as how many billions of dollars of investment Japan would bring for this sector.
I'll ask this to Mr. Seto also, this question. How many billions of dollars are coming?
So yes. I normally, my view is let's not worry about those billions of dollars because our industry is huge. Semiconductor industry today is about more than $1 trillion of manufacturing. And in that, I'm coming to the supply chain topic, which is $210 billion. And what we should look at is now, India and Japan together, India brings the strength of scale up at a fast speed to build together. And how can we bring this $200 billion to $400 billion and build it further?
Yes, Mr. Seto, how many billions of dollars is what everybody is asking that Japan is going to bring in as far as the semiconductor layer of this conversation is concerned? Go ahead.
Right, thank you very much. Yeah, as he pointed out, that actual, investment or the movements are happening right now. So the anchor investors like such as Renesas or Tokyo Electron were quite aggressive to engage in the challenges changing India. Not to lose this momentum, the governments were quick to launch the Japan-India Semiconductor Supply Chain Partnership in 2023. followed by the Japan's METI's launch of Global South Incentive Scheme for Japan's companies to expand supply chain across the world, launching quarterly Semiconductor Committee by Japanese Chamber of Commerce in India to gather relevant Japanese companies to sensitize their awareness. And one element I want to add on is a kind of human resource development. So semiconductor manufacturing, we have a lot of human resource to work on in India. So JICA is trying to do a kind of training programs to educate more than 50 trainers who gonna in the future to be a kind of trainers for the training institutions in India. So let me add on that.
So lots that can be expected. In fact, from bullet trains to terabytes, the Japan-India economic partnership is only growing and becoming even more expansive. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for being part of this very riveting conversation. And thank you so much to the audience members as well.